Colonel Rob Maness has a lifelong record of providing dedicated service to this nation. Having worked his way up from the enlisted ranks to full colonel, he served our country for more than 32 years. He has served as a bomber squadron commander, bomb disposal technician, Joint Chiefs of Staff operations officer, assisted the national security team with the campaign plan for the global war on terrorism. He authored the first theater nuclear war plan and served as the vice commander of America's largest airborne intelligence wing. Colonel Rob Maness is a true American hero. This is Rob Maness Live.
Today, Governor Tate Reeves visited warming shelters across the state alongside U.S. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. Restoring power remains a major challenge, especially in North Mississippi, where some communities are still without power and water. MEMA reports more than 38,000 outages still remain. That's down significantly from the nearly 180,000 at the height of the storm.
Welcome back to Training Tuesday, and the Rob Maness Show's live on Worldview Tube and our X Spaces simulcast. Well, friends, you've heard me say this many times. The fight for liberty at the state level and state legislatures are where the citizens and lawmakers interact and work together the most. In today's society, many Americans feel disconnected and underrepresented by their federal representatives, but state legislators are hard at work for their constituents and in direct contact with them. Most of them are. I can obviously say that. When disasters happen, it's the state government that responds first and provides the needed help, whether it's financial or food and shelter. Big things are happening in my state's legislature this year in the session that just started in January. Moves to continue building on our state's education successes by adopting more school choice policies, increasing teacher pay and making them competitive with other states, fixing the state's retirement system, banning Sharia law, as Texas has done and other states surrounding us have done, fighting fraudulent use of government funds, attempts to restrict hunting rights, reinstating the citizen ballot initiative here in Mississippi that we lost a few years ago, and closed primaries are just a few of the major policy debates and actions happening right now in the state capitol. These policy proposal debates are all about taking care of our citizens directly and ensuring we are as free as possible. Well, my guest today to talk with us about these issues is Mississippi State Representative Fred Shanks. Fred represents State House District 60, which is just east of Jackson, the capital, in central Mississippi, and includes Brandon. Representative Shanks serves on several committees, including the chair of the Rules Committee, which is very important in any state house and the federal house, too. He's served as a reserve police officer for the city of Brandon and previously worked at the Brandon Discount Drugs. Before his election to the state legislature, he also served on the Brandon Board of Aldermen. Fred, welcome to the Rob Maness Show, sir. Are you with us?
Thank you, Colonel. I appreciate it, man. Glad to be here.
Oh, man, I know you guys are really busy. I mean, you're just like 5 weeks into the legislative session now, so I really appreciate your time. You probably heard the opening. I'm always harping on my viewers that the real fight is in the state legislatures. I know that the big show on the media is always at the federal level, but the real hard fight is at the state legislature level. So I try to get a state rep in every once in a while, a couple times a year, to talk, especially when you're in session.
Absolutely.
My opening clip was of the governor talking to Secretary Noem yesterday as she was reviewing the damage and the ongoing winter storm activity that's happening in the northern part of the state. Is the legislature going to do anything like give some aid legislation to those folks?
In fact, the Senate passed a bill yesterday to give $20 million in aid to North Mississippi. And then today I'm on the State Affairs Committee, which we just met before I got on with you. We passed two bills to do that as well. And we're trying to figure out maybe another opportunity to we're trying to look at getting the money to North Mississippi as fast as possible, whether that be go through MEMA or through the Department of Finance. So yeah, we actually just did that today, and and I was glad to see that Elon Musk has stepped up and helping a little bit up there. I thought that was pretty cool, man.
Yeah, he
So
beat me to it. He sent what, 500 generators, I
yeah,
think.
yeah, yeah. And I talked to one of my colleagues who's from up that way, and apparently he's given the discretion of the supervisor. So I hope that works out well. But yeah, I thought that was great, man. I mean, that's just he didn't have to do that, and that's appreciated. So yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. But
Yeah.
one thing before we get started, you mentioned you're real big on civics, and we really need to get back to that in the society because my first cousin is Congressman Michael Guest, and we live very close to each other in Brandon. And we were running at the same time. And I had multiple people coming up to me who knew that we were related, and they were like, "Fred, are you and Michael mad at each other? I mean, what's going on?" And it took me a minute. I'm like, "No, I'm running for Jackson, Mississippi. He's running for Washington D.C." So, in fact, I still have some neighbors that think I'm in Washington, and I just I don't tell them any different. So we're fighting for you.
There's a sizable difference in the paycheck, I'm pretty sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely, 100%, 100%. It's a labor of love here.
It is absolutely. That's one of the things that I think gets lost on folks a lot when you say legislature. Most people automatically think the United States Congress, where there is big bucks up there,
Right.
not just in the paychecks, but I mean they're dealing with trillions of dollars, obviously, every day, and it just gets lost on folks that these House districts like yours. I mean, how many? What's the population size of a typical Mississippi House district these days?
So it's you try to be in 25,000, and then in the Senate is right at 59,000, and that's everybody. And and in the state house, you don't really have a support staff like you would in Congress. So if I've helped anybody or they need to know something, I'm getting an answer. I'm helping them move from one prison to another. Whatever it may be. It's me doing it, and I have no problem doing that. But you're right. I mean, the Mississippi House is probably the most grassroots organization as far as local government goes. It really is. I mean, I'm on my cell phone. People can text me, call me, even when we're on the House floor, and I'll get back to them. And if they got a problem with a bill, we'll look at it. But yeah, we're really accessible. So.
Yeah, there's quite a few bills. Before I go too far along, I got to ask you. All right, this hunting dog bill. What is going on with that? And what in the world? Look, my mom and daddy were raised in Southwest Tennessee, so I mean they got married in Corinth, Mississippi, because she was too young to get married in Tennessee. So there, we have a close. I'm from here now, and I consider myself a Mississippian more than anything else. But I got to tell you, man. My brothers and cousins and friends are all hunters, and I saw that bill, and I'm like, what in the heck is going on? Tell folks what's going on with that.
So there was a bill. It is dead. Let me preface it. It is dead as a hammer. It is not coming back. But it was to limit dog hunting, which I'm like you. I mean, I hunted, but I never ran dogs, and but a lot of people do. And it would limit it would basically limit you to where you could not do that unless you had, I guess, access to 2,000 acres, and it included deer, rabbit, squirrel, any fur-bearing animal. And it lit a fuse. It was like dynamite going off. And the guy that wrote it has hadn't heard much out of him since. He's been pretty quiet, but. And that's one of the things, any legislator can come up with any bill, they want to. We have some that do up to 80 bills. And, I want to say we have about 4,000 bills at the start of a session, and there's some wild ones, but quickly, here anyway, in Mississippi, people need to look at the author. That's a big telltale sign on whether it's going to go anywhere or not. And, so I try to, I caught a lot on that one, and I quickly found out, and we crushed it, But yeah, that one got pretty cranked up.
in the Mississippi legislature, if a bill is submitted by a state representative, in your case in the House, is it
Yeah.
their name that's the author, or are there sometimes
Yes.
other authors assigned to them?
Well, no, it would be so whatever I come up with, or whatever you could come to me and say, "Hey, Fred, I'd like to do this specific thing." I say, "Hey, man, that's a great idea, and let's do it." And I'll submit it to our team of lawyers, and they'll kind of check with other neighboring states, maybe see if there's any kind of language out there. And I mean, it really is that easy to get one started, and
Mhm.
and then from there, it will have my name on it. And the more colleagues I talk to about signing on, they would be a co-author. And
Mhm.
it certainly helps if you've got a bill and you've got 10 or 12 co-authors. It really helps your case. Because
Yeah.
you got to if you got your bill, I mean, you got to work it through the whole process, and it's hard to do 1 to 2 bills that you really want.
Mhm.
So I mean, it's people who
Yeah.
have dozens of bills. It's almost impossible to work them through the whole process. So, but
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm glad you brought up the process
yeah,
because you're the chairman of the Rules Committee.
correct.
I have a pretty good understanding of how the Rules Committee at the national U.S. House of Representatives
Mhm.
works. What's the process of a bill as it relates to the Rules Committee in the State House?
So what I do is the House chamber operates under a series of rules which come through me.
Mhm.
This past year, or when I became rules chairman, one of the things I did is I allowed firearms in the House chamber. Something
God
got brought
bless you.
up.
God
Former law
bless
enforcement, I'm like, hey, it sounds like a good idea. Let's do it. But because we were all probably packing heat anyway up here, so
you.
it
Yeah.
just made sense. But we'll do that. I will also do any proclamations or resolutions on guests. If you were to come here, I'd have something written up for you and introduce you, and all those types of things go through here. And then the speaker is actually on my committee. He and the
Okay.
speaker pro tem. So the speaker can send any piece of legislation he wants to through the committee, if he's trying to use it, strategically, so to speak.
Mhm.
So it's pretty wide open, but it is the busiest committee here. We usually meet every day, where most committees probably meet once a week. So
Yeah, yeah, that sounds very similar to the
yeah.
federal level. That is the busiest committee group. I know some folks that are on that up there. They quite often get in trouble. Some of them do.
Oh yeah, yes. We're not trying to do that here, but but
Nobody is ever trying to do that. But sometimes you got to make a
that's right.
decision on something that's not
That's
something
right.
you
That's right. So
necessarily it's gonna be loved
yeah,
by the public especially. The
yeah.
so there's some big priorities that Speaker White
Mm,
has this legislative session. And I kind of got the HB2 discussion reserved
yeah.
for the next segment, but I want to start it now. Uh,
Uh-huh.
so what are his top 5 priorities for this session? Obviously, the school choice bill is one of them.
Well, I mean, I'd be real honest with you. School choices kind of suck the air out of the room. It has
Yeah.
been, and generally, when you do something that big, you'll kind of wait till session gets going. But we came
Mhm.
out of the gate on it, and it's already over at the Senate, and they may
Mhm.
take it up Thursday, is what I hear. Uh, but that was primarily the biggest one that he had. Some of the other things, some of the other big ones that we're working on, actually working on today, are pharmacy benefit managers, some reform there. And what that'll do is that'll help our independent pharmacies, which are in all of our communities and are part of the community, and helping that way. So we're doing that right now. And
Yeah.
then I would say, we're, I think he had mentioned it too, the ballot initiative. That's something that
Mhm.
I was the Constitution chairman, and it goes to that committee, and I worked on that for 3 years, and then I kind of passed it to the current chairman. We're bringing that back up, and I believe the Senate has a bill. So looking to restore that, which we should do. So
Yeah.
out to that, we also have, and you mentioned it as well, a big teacher pay raise.
Mhm.
We'll be taking that up here on the floor tomorrow. So we're
Okay.
we're getting
So
getting pretty cranked up on that.
So that was one of the questions I had because I have, and I'll be honest, I haven't had time to go through the HB2 line by line
Yeah,
yet, like a
it's a
lot of you
lot.
guys probably have. It's a
Yeah.
lot. I was wondering if the teacher pay raise was part of the House's piece of that, but so it sounds like it's a single issue bill
Well,
on that.
it's
That's a
sort
good
of. So
idea
there,
if it is.
yeah. Well, what we did a teacher assistant pay raise in that bill, but
Okay.
we have a
All right.
standalone, like just like you were headed there. We have a
Yeah.
standalone teacher pay raise, and it will also include teacher assistants in that bill too. Trying to kind of
Mhm.
cover all bases on that. But yeah, we certainly do. We've got they're kind of in both. Yeah, and
Well, that's
that'll
good.
happen. That's just part of the process. You got to try everything to get things through. So
Yeah, I've got a family member that's a public school teacher, and she wants to come here, but she can't really afford it until the pay increases
yeah,
get better.
well,
Is what I
the
keep hearing from her. So,
the one we're proposing in the House, I won't say the number just yet because it hadn't come out of
yeah,
committee, but it will
yeah,
bring it. It'll bring it to where all the surrounding states are. So she would be in
that's
good
good
shape.
news. Yeah,
But
that's
yeah,
really good
so
news. I'm
that's
glad to hear that.
yeah, we're swinging hard on that one.
That's good. All right, Fred. We got to take a break, commercial break
Okay.
here. When we come back, we'll dive into the HB2 discussion because even my state legislator, who is Richard Bennett down here on the coast, he voted no against it. So I want to dive into what's generating what appears to be a pretty big debate over school choice here in the state of Mississippi, which in general appears to be aligned as pro school choice, but there's some things that need to be addressed at the policy level, I think, to get everybody comfortable. We'll be right back with Representative Fred Shanks of the Mississippi State Legislature.
You woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever. You know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work, try to see a doctor this week, or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit, and here's how to order.
Go to worldviewhealthcare.com. Your kit to treat dozens of common and serious illnesses is rushed to your door. worldviewhealthcare.com. That's worldviewhealthcare.com.
The emergency kit available at worldviewhealthcare.com. Make sure you don't have to go to urgent care. I got pneumonia. I didn't have to go. I took this last year. Stayed at home, went to bed.
Do you believe that the federal government has a responsibility to ensure that all children, rural children, urban, rich, poor, special needs, have access to quality education?
That is certainly the goal of the president. He has said that he wants to make sure that there is equal access to quality education for every student in our country, which is why he is such a proponent of school choice. He doesn't believe that any child should be trapped in a failing school, that we should have parents have the ability to choose where their children can be able to go to school so that if they are in a failing school, they have an opportunity to have better education somewhere else, that they have the tools to be able to do that.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's Training Tuesday, and we're doing some training today. It's a little bit of civics training and education, but it's more about why the state legislature is so important to you and me and your family and my family, and probably, and I've said it before, more so than even the federal Congress is. And my guest is Mississippi Representative Fred Shanks from House District 60, who's also the chairman of the Rules Committee and serves on several other committees in the legislature. And we're talking about the current session in Mississippi, which has been going on just short of about 5 weeks now. And their priorities, the speaker's, Jason White's priority is a bill called HB2, which is a massive school choice bill. And Fred, just as we were leading out of for the break there, I mentioned that my state rep had voted no on this bill. And the reason I want to lead with that is that one of the concerns that I hear about here all along the coast, and I'm on the executive committee for the Republican Party in Harrison County, so I try to get around and talk to folks at the grassroots level as much as I can. And we've been talking about this bill for a long time, much longer than just before the session started, because it's a good subject. I think the people of Mississippi want kids and parents to be able to make the right choices for themselves in general, like Secretary McMahon said Donald Trump wants to do and everything. But one of the big concerns down here is that we not throw the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak. You know, the Long Beach schools where Representative Bennett is, most of his district is. I'm in Gulfport. I'm in a small part of it though, but most of it's Long Beach. Is the number one schools in the state. So they don't want to put policies in place that harm the ability to keep that performance even improving over what it is now. What is going on with this bill? Is there anything you can talk about that might resolve that issue or address that issue for folks?
Well, you're right on the money. So you got the good school districts. They look at it like, we got a good thing going. Everything's working okay. We don't want to change anything. And then you have school districts like where Speaker Jason White, where he's from more of a rural area where, school choice would benefit kids. And it's very, very contentious. I want to say outside of me voting on the Mississippi state flag, that was the most contentious vote I'd ever taken up until this one. And I would say this one's right there with it. And it's just, you've got there's that easily. That's what it comes down to. I think the main thing to do is to reach out to the communities. And it was a huge bill. It was over 500 pages. So just the more education on it is what would help, just the flow of information. But it comes down to that. People have good school districts. They just don't want to, they fear messing with it in any way. And obviously this is a sweeping change, to that. So, but now there is some, opt out type clauses where if a school is at capacity, then they cannot accept, any other children coming in. There's some things, but it's still just kind of up in the air as far as kind of where it's going to go when it gets, when it actually hits the Senate committee.
Yeah. So I get one of the questions that I have then is why so big? Why does it have to be such a large bill? It's my understanding there are something around between 18 and 20 individual pieces of legislation that were rolled into this one bill. What's the purpose behind making it all in one like?
That's a good question. I'm not on the education committee, so I'm not quite sure why we went so big with it. But the Senate came out and they passed immediately on the first day kind of a bare bones policy that it basically says that if a school accepts you, the school you're at has to release you. So they went ahead and passed that, and then we came out and it was a lot of it was code section, but it was 553 pages. It was huge. That's a good question. I'm leaning more to where your thoughts are. It's just so much easier to get something through that is, a little more specific. So, but it was the full meal deal, and it was coming. We were hearing a lot from the national. I know you had McMahon on right before I came on, and we've been in talks with Washington D.C. for a long time, and I think most of it came from there. So that's why it was so big.
Yeah, I was going to ask you what inputs the federal level made, and then ask you about if you know anything about other outside organizations that are working on it.
Yeah, well, there were both. We had some local kind of, I guess I'd call them think tanks, conservative think tanks that that deal with like Empower Mississippi. They're a good group of folks, real close to me right now right down the street from the Capitol. And, they were involved. We had several different groups involved. But, we were talking a lot with Washington. A bunch of us went to Washington, D.C. this summer and had a meeting, and they kind of gave us, their spiel for it. And then I was in a meeting where some of Trump's education folks came down here and talked to us. So, it's been a lot of communication with Washington. So.
What are the key policy features that are going to be debated in this process now that the Senate, it's over at the Senate now? I'm assuming they'll pass a version of it and then it'll go to conference for additional debate and markup, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. It would head, if they pass it, it will then head to towards the end of session. It'll be a conference week, and that's exactly like you were saying. It'll get chopped up a million ways from Sunday. Things will be taken out, added, negotiating, anything like that. The big piece is, kids that are excelling at their school and their school's just limiting them. That's who it's designed to help. And of course, some special needs children who maybe their school does not have the program that they need. It's designed for those. So that's the key pieces that, are keeping this thing going. So
so those are the key pieces that would give parents the ability to opt out of the current school and move their kid to another school. what about the financing of this? Do we know yet how the proposal is supposed to work coming out of the House?
Well,
Because the basic idea.
yeah.
Let me just finish this thought real quick. The basic idea, the way I understand it, is that the money follows the child, funding kids instead of systems. So is the watchword, the slogan I think you hear and everything. Which in general, I totally agree with that. I've
Yeah.
always been a
Yeah.
school choice advocate.
Yeah.
But I'm just wondering how that mechanism is supposed to, you know?
And you're right. I think the cost per student, and these are things I didn't know till I got in here, but each public
Mhm.
school student is worth X amount of dollars from the
Right.
state, and I think it's around say $7,000, and yes, that would go to to another school, or if there are private vouchers, then that would count towards them going to if a private school had a program that would help a student in something that they needed. And then there's supposed to be a fund set up to cover that additional expense where your local taxes do. And that's been a big
Mhm.
contentious argument is people in a county that's doing well, kind of like yours, they would say, well, I pay property taxes,
Mhm.
and I want to keep this area nice. That's why I pay them. That's one of the big talking points right now. But yes, the money would follow the student. And then, like I said, from there, now that would probably change, I would imagine, once it gets to goes through committee and the Senate does whatever they're going to do. I would think
Yeah, I would think because the money
additional
is
money.
not the when you hear the phrase at least in my past experience when I hear the phrase it costs X amount of dollars per student to educate a
Yeah,
student, not all of that X amount is generally coming out of the direct property taxes. A lot of that comes from grants from the federal government,
sure.
those kind of things. I've heard, but I haven't been able to confirm this yet, that there would be a split to where the non-tax dollar funding would stay with the school giving up the student, and only that direct tax money would go with the student.
Yeah.
Does that sound right?
Yeah, and I've heard a little bit of that.
Mhm.
And it's just like I said, hey, you were really not going to know till this thing is the conference, kind of really on the specifics of it. But I have heard that kind of kicked around a little bit. So
The other thing I've heard about talked about by the voters is this ESA's Education Savings Account. I think it is.
right,
Are you
yes.
hearing from folks on that?
Yeah, and that's kind of split in my community on people being for it and against it.
Hmm.
And yeah, I mean that's a massive talking point on both sides. People
Yeah.
argue against it and for it, and absolutely, that's a huge piece of it on kind of where people's thoughts are about it. So
Yeah.
now, does that stay? I would just my thoughts on it. I would think that might not make it.
Mhm.
Once it gets to the Senate is my guess. So.
Yeah, because that would remove control of the funding
Right.
completely from any oversight of the tax dollars,
That's
and
right. That's
put
right.
it back into citizen hands directly.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
would want some kind of oversight to happen
Right.
somehow on that.
Yeah. I mean, you're exactly right. And then
Mm.
say if it's a private school, they're a private for a reason, and they don't want somebody
Mhm.
coming in kind of telling them what to do. So that's another big issue, with that. So
Yeah, one of the
absolutely.
other issues I wanted to ask you about is I am on the private school. I'm glad you brought that up. On the private school issue, uh, here's the comment I heard from a grassroots person that's paying attention to this, and a parent, grandparent, is that it seems to be the bill seems to be leaning towards helping private schools more than anything else. And they have concerns about that because these are public tax dollars,
Sure.
So
Sure.
anytime we have that going to a private organization, I think we should be concerned. As a matter of fact, we're going to talk about that fraud in the
Yeah.
last segment of the program.
Yeah.
Are
And,
you
and, and
hearing
you're
that?
right. And again, but then
Hmm.
the counterpoint to that is that's a big part of it. But the counterpoint is, the parents that are sending their kids to private school now, well, they're still paying property taxes for a
Hmm.
school they're not using. So that's another big issue. And do the private schools want Big Brother, so to speak, coming in and trying to tell them what to do? Is it worth it for them to do it?
Hmm.
If that happens, yeah, that's another big,
Yeah.
huge discussion right there. Absolutely.
Yeah, well, we got to take another break, Fred. When we come back, I want to keep this discussion going for a little bit on schools because I'm a big homeschooler. I homeschooled my youngest son in junior high and high school, and I've heard there's a bill or two associated with that, and I want to find out what we know about HB2's impact on the homeschool situation specifically, because it's very important to be able to homeschool your children when it's necessary to get that job done. So we'll be right back with Mississippi State Rep. Fred Shanks from House District 60 up in Brandon, Mississippi.
Immigration issue.
Yes.
What do we do about radical Islam?
First thing to say is America is a Christian nation. Thanks be to God for that heritage. That is the reason that so many generations of average Americans have been able to lead full and dignified lives. And we should embrace that heritage, be grateful for it. Americans are rightly concerned about radical Islam. The first introduction a lot of Americans had to Islam was 9/11.
Yeah.
And now, what are we seeing? We're seeing hordes of radical Islamic immigration that come in and they explicitly, overtly attempt to stand up legal regimes and processes that are contrary to the American Constitution, inconsistent with the American spirit. And then within those groups, there are networks that are taking advantage of the generosity of the American taxpayer, right? These people, right? We should say unequivocally, Sharia law, like banned across the United States. There is no universe in which Sharia-inspired norms, whether that's family law, financing, criminal justice, any of that stuff, has no place here. And then finally, if you are even a naturalized citizen.
Okay, go ahead, lay it on me.
You take
I was waiting for.
You take advantage of the American taxpayer. You will be aggressively prosecuted.
Great.
You will be denaturalized if necessary, and you will be sent back home.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's Training Tuesday, and we're talking with Mississippi State Representative Fred Shanks, who's the chairman of the Rules Committee in the State House here in Mississippi, serves on several other committees, and his district 60 is just to the east of Jackson, Mississippi, up in the central part of the state, includes the city of Brandon. Fred, before we went to the break, I said I wanted to ask you about the homeschool because I heard there's a homeschool bill that would require the state to come in and do a lot of things that I didn't have to do. I finished my son's high school tenure once we moved over here 4 years ago. I finished him up in high school here, and I was very pleased with how the homeschool system worked in the state. And I'm hearing from homeschool parents all across the coast here that we are not happy that the state wants to interfere more than it already does. Is that going to happen, or is that bill okay?
That bill is dead as a hammer. That's another one. I really think probably the genesis of that bill was probably because somebody was mad about House Bill 2. That's my opinion. Is maybe to do that. And I have a younger sister who is in Laurel, Mississippi, and she homeschools her 4 kids, and they're all excel, do great, probably just like yours. And no, we would not want to mess with that at all. Parents, they do a good job of that. I've never heard of any situations that I've heard of that were detrimental to children being homeschooled, and usually come out better in my opinion, and from everything I've heard. So no, that bill's dead, and it's not gonna. There won't be anything with that. So if anything, we want to. Yeah.
Is HB2 going to have any provisions so that homeschool parents can get access to some of the tax dollars? I mean, that's the one thing that, I mean, we were able to do it very easily because of our financial situation, but not everybody can. And you do have to pay for the curriculum and those kind of things that you don't have to pay for in public school.
Yes, they were included in that. I cannot remember quite the dollar amount, but it was in the thousands of dollars. And again, they're taxpayers like everybody else. I mean, I fully think they are entitled to something in that as well. So yes, there is in the bill, and I would certainly want that to happen.
And before we jump to Sharia law, I have to ask you about the sports aspect of HB2. What are you hearing about concerns about the sports pizza? But I don't know if you've ever heard of the Tim Tebow Act, which allows homeschoolers to participate in public school system sports. But I hear a lot from folks, well, yeah, but what if they want to move Johnny, the star football player, out of our team and over to another team, and those kind of things? Is there a sports aspect to this at all?
Well, yes and no. I mean, that is it's against the rules to do that. And now I'm sure people obviously they skirt the rules on that. But no, all those rules that are in place, like sitting out a year and all that kind of stuff, they're still in there. So and clearly that was one of the big points. It's like, well, if this passes, everybody's just going to take the good athletes out of one school, take it to another. But no, that wouldn't happen. And and the Tim Tebow Act I really like, because again, it's homeschool children, they want to play sports, they're their families are paying school tax like everybody else, so let them play. And you're really not talking about a whole lot of kids taking advantage of that, but I think it's a good deal. So
I do too. It's something that I haven't seen in other states. In the places I have seen it, the kids are they work well within the system, parents and kids and school systems, and it works out, and all the fears are kind of put to the back burner, and they evaporate and go away. I have a live audience, and I do have a question over there. I want to go ahead and take the question from the audience member before we jump into this. But I do have a question on my mind about Islamist private schooling as we get into the Sharia law bill issue that I'm aware there's a bill in the State House that's coming through the process. So I want to talk about that. But let's take this question first. Our host over in the audience is Shell. Go ahead, Shell.
We have Wib, sir.
Thank you, Shell. Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Rep Shanks. My question is, for HB2, how much is your GovEd demanding that you pay in order to allow this legislation to go through? Texas just tackled this last year, and we had to pay GovEd like some outrageous. It was like either $10 million or $10 billion in order to be allowed to pass the school voucher program.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Are you saying that the state had to pay the federal government in order to do it?
No, it was more like green mail to the state school, to the education system within Texas.
I mean, that's just, I'm assuming it's just set up differently, but that's never popped up in any discussions that I've been in on the bill. Certainly there's a cost because the state's gonna pick up this, but that type of situation, I've never heard anything about that. So.
Yeah, I mean, there is going to be a cost to it, as the representative said. So, but I don't think those dollars have been collected together as an amount to become a talking point or a debate issue as yet on this. The Senate hasn't taken it up yet, so they'll probably hear this and do it that way.
There you go. Yeah,
you never know. But that's a great question. That is a great question. There is a cost to doing this. There's a cost to doing everything, and the taxpayers that have to vote on it and their representatives that have to vote on it should know about it. But one more question on this: is there a plan, or do you think it'd be I think it'd be a good idea. I just thought of this as we were talking during the show. Is maybe Speaker White and his team could go out to some of these districts where this bill is contentious and do some town halls with folks and answer questions and answer their questions about it. I know they've done a little bit of that before the session, but is there time to do that? Or would that be a worthwhile thing? Does that happen?
Oh, I definitely, I believe in those. And, the more you educate the public on anything we're doing up
Yeah.
here, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I would, if I was on the education committee and especially in the Senate, I would be doing these weekly until, until the end of session. Absolutely. I mean, I like those. I think they're effective. They let the public know what's going on. I'm real open on, obviously, on social media and things like that. But yeah, absolutely. I think that'd be a great idea.
I follow you on social media now, and I appreciate your efforts to communicate, even though I'm not your constituent, but it's good to have somebody giving a play-by-play because that it answers a lot of concerns. And I think a lot of concerns with HB2 could be answered just by over communicating about the specific policies that addresses. But there is a Sharia law bill in the session this time. You mentioned it in one of your posts, which gave me the idea. I wanted to ask you about it. I think it's just so you know where I'm coming from. I was in the Pentagon on 9/11, 32 years in the military, been a bomb disposal tech fighting terrorism since I was about 18 years old. And I'm very familiar with Islam. Islam is not a religion. It is a form of government. But most Americans, when they hear the restrictions that want to be put on and those kind of things, they react from the perspective of the First Amendment and the freedom to worship as you please and freedom to think and those kind of things, the First Amendment protections and those kind of things. So how does this bill work that we're proposing, and how does it going to address people that just don't really have a good understanding of what Sharia law is?
Yeah, you stated it very well. It is an insurgent movement, in my opinion, especially as we're seeing, nationally and in Minnesota. I mean, it's not, and I agree with you. It is not a religion at all. I've really been looking into it a lot since things have been popping off, and it's kind of, they kind of come in. They could buy up land, and that was one of my concerns. I've got some rural area in Rankin County, and then the other counties around, what's to stop a group coming in buying hundreds and hundreds of acres, nobody knowing about it? Next thing you know, you've got a major problem on your hand, and and that's why I came up with the bill. Obviously, as you mentioned, Texas kind of led the charge on it, and some other states have done it now. And there's actually 4 bills right now that we have, and the one that I like the best and that I'm working on, it bans the Muslim Brotherhood and Sharia law as a whole. I mean, it just totally does away with it. You can't do any of it. And I know we do have some laws now. I mean, which are our laws, American laws, where when they come in, they say, oh, well, we abide by Sharia law. Of course, that's all garbage. But, this would just cut that off before it ever got started. So, but it really does concern me because I do believe that they're not, these movements are going to move to more rural and less populated areas where they can get a foothold, in my opinion. And I think that's exactly where they're headed. So, just trying to get ahead of it is what I'm trying to do.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's where all of these movements go. Look, the United States of America is a vast country.
Right.
Having spent my life flying over it, a large part of it, flying over this country back and forth, it's huge. So the rural parts of it vastly outnumber the urban parts, and it's easy to just hide in the shadows, so to speak, or just people not pay attention to you because you can go out and do your own thing because we like freedom.
Right. I don't want to trample on anybody's rights, or or infringe on anybody. But like I said, this is not freedom of religion. That's not what this is. It's they're slowly trying to either outpopulate us and take over, and that's just. I mean, we're looking at it. Our eyes are not lying to us right now.
Well,
and what an ultimate slap in the face to you and your career. Trying to stop this, and then here it is right in our own backyard. So,
oh, you're absolutely right. I'm glad we're doing it. That's one of the things that I was asking folks down here about is if there was a plan to get this done. Will it designate the Muslim Brotherhood as a domestic terrorist organization like Texas did? I think that's very important. I think it's very
Right.
important that that get done.
Yeah. Yeah, and mine even includes CAIR, CAIR, which is an organization, Arabic organization. Same thing. It's just a renamed. I mean, I mean, to be honest with you, it's a terrorist organization. You know, trying to establish their own another foothold. So yeah, mine gets rid of all that. And
Yeah, the Council on
absolutely.
American Islamic Relations.
Right.
That's CARE. It is an arm of the Muslim Brotherhood. I'm glad you brought that up. We
Yeah.
have to include all of these networks that are tied together like this in order to get our arms around this thing. Well, you mentioned buying land and everything. We're going to come back from the break. I want to talk about fraud, and this is related to the Islamist folks that are here too, but also other immigrant groups and just folks getting away with defrauding government entities and using our tax dollars in a way that the voter and the legislators didn't intend to. And we'll be right back with Fred Shanks.
News is moving faster than ever, and so are we. Worldview Tube brings you 24/7 live stream coverage and now real-time alerts when it matters most. Once you have the Worldview Tube app installed, exit the app and navigate your way to Settings. In Settings, locate the tab labeled Notifications. Select the Notifications tab. Scroll down until you locate the Worldview Tube app icon. Select the tab, and here you can turn on and customize your notification experience for the Worldview Tube app. News doesn't wait, and neither should you. Turn on push notifications to stay informed. Every headline as it happens.
It is Mississippi's largest ever public embezzlement scandal. $77 million in federal funds meant for child poverty reduction programs, employment assistance, and child care services. But the money was allegedly spent on homes and cars, luxury drug rehab, and on sham nonprofits. Former professional wrestler Ted DiBiase Jr. is due in court today, federally charged in the scheme with conspiracy, wire fraud, theft of government funds, and money laundering. DiBiase Jr. is accused of embezzling nearly $4 million in welfare funds in 2020 through fraudulent contracts. At least 7 people in total have pleaded guilty in the scandal, including DiBiase's brother and Mississippi's former Department of Human Services director. The state's Republican auditor, who's been looking at this for years, warned in 2023 about how perpetrators got away with it. Watch.
Our Department of Human Services is not monitoring its sub-grantees, its nonprofits, to ensure that the dollars are reaching needy folks. The head of the agency did not want them monitored because he was handing large amounts of funds to the nonprofits, and then he and the nonprofit executives were discussing ways to spend those dollars in violation of the law and in violation of TANF regs. Monitoring needs to be taken seriously, and it was not in the state of Mississippi.
DiBiase Jr. has pleaded not guilty. The trial expected to last about 3 weeks.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's Training Tuesday. That clip was from earlier in January of 2026, and it embedded in that is a clip of Auditor Shad White from 2023 when a lot of this originally was breaking, this fraud, especially in the welfare system here in the state of Mississippi. And my guest today is State Representative Fred Shanks. He's the chairman of the House Rules Committee and hails from House District 60. Fred, I use that clip just to remind everybody that, hey, you know, just because we're down here in Mississippi and kind of people think we're out of the way, it doesn't mean that people can't abuse and fraudulently use tax dollars and steal from you and me, basically.
Right.
You know, and while that information that was presented there was over the last few years, I wanted to ask you, is the legislature taking any steps to strengthen our anti-fraud and counter-fraud and auditing laws to help the future auditor? I know Mr. White's not going to be the auditor for his whole life, I don't think. So future auditors need to have, do they need to have stronger tools and laws to back them up so that we can force these agencies to properly protect our funds?
Right. Before I answer that, I did think it was kind of funny that Governor Tim Walz brought that up to try to take a little shade off of himself.
I'm getting to that. You
Okay,
beat me
okay.
to it. Yeah, that's all right.
I
Yeah.
was like,
Yeah.
really,
I'm getting
yeah. But I thought that was funny. But oh yes, after that happened, it kind of caught everybody by surprise. I mean, these state department heads, which is what Davis was, who was over DHS at the
Yeah.
time. I mean, they had a lot of authority, and yeah, I mean, there was just nobody really. Come to find out, I mean, there was nobody checking, and I really think that everybody just assumed everything was on the up and up. But since then, right? So that department has been straightened out. Now that really put everybody on notice. Like, things need to get tightened down a lot. When we have talked to Shad quite a few times, and he's always got some new legislation that comes over here that we try to help him on and pass different things to strengthen his office. So and that was one of the things he and I are friends, and I brought up an issue with PBMs, which is what you and I had kind of talked about a little earlier, and the state PBM had overcharged. That's my background, and I told him kind of what I thought they were doing, and he got right on it, and he ended up getting $55 million back from them. So, we're there's definitely more eyes on things. We've done several pieces of legislation to help him, and to strengthen his office, and yeah, I mean that was a big one. Obviously, like the clip said, it's the case is going on right now until probably mid-February, and I know a lot of the players in it, so real interesting.
Yeah, it is very interesting. I'm glad you brought that up. That you know him and you're helping Mr. White. Because that takes you out of the crowd over in the Senate that tried to defund his agency last go around.
Right.
Which we all down here saw who was involved in that and said, "What are you doing?" Because there's a lot of tax dollars getting spent. That Mr. White's doing you could say whatever you want about him, but he is doing a very good job as a state's auditor and trying to protect the taxpayers' funds so that they can't be used. Are we at risk because we've had these issues? This is where Waltz comes in. Are we at risk of having a bigger scandal go unknown, like as we speak right now, because of immigrants and those kinds of groups that have come in here, and we have all kinds of Medicaid fraud already and Medicare fraud already in the system. Is Mississippi at risk of having something that big? I mean, we're talking but somewhere between $9 and $18 billion in Minnesota, which is why we all laughed when Waltz brought up Mississippi, because the numbers I've seen are not even close to that. But are we at risk of that anywhere in the state?
I mean, certainly, Shad White's finding fraud, it seems like on a daily basis, but I don't think it would be anywhere near that level because, in my opinion, and, obviously I like to go down a rabbit hole every once in a while, but in Minnesota, it's highly political. It seems like everybody is in on it. And I don't think, obviously we're under conservative leadership, whereas they are not. And I don't think, I'm sure we're going to have, a little here and there. You just can't stop everything, but I just think it's so political there, and I really think conspiracy theorist, a little bit, but I really think that's why Walz was picked to be the vice president because he had access to all these funds. Because if you'll remember, Kamala Harris, they had $1 billion raised in just a matter of months. So I think that was a lot that had been going on a long time, and I think it was more of a coordinated effort within their political system, and I don't think we have that. No.
Yeah, when you see those Somali companies, air quotes companies, writing big checks to the Kamala Harris Waltz campaign directly, that just factually shows that that's one of the things that was going on. You mentioned the ability of foreigners to buy farmland, especially in land here in Mississippi. I know there are many thousands of acres owned by Chinese companies, other foreign nationals, and those kind of things. And I just want to ask you: is there any legislation in the hopper to strengthen the ability of the Ag Commissioner to do something about it? I talked to Andy Gibson early on when I got here and mentioned it to him. He said, "Well, there's a law, but it's just not very strong." That's supposed to prevent that stuff. Are you guys working on anything?
I'm not. Now there definitely could be. this session. I'm not quite sure. And we got into those discussions a couple of years ago, and they kind of always have popped up. I'm not quite sure why they didn't, get any further, because I want to say the largest landowner out of like a foreign landowner in Mississippi is from the Netherlands, which I found interesting. I didn't know that. Kind of started looking into it. But I believe the talks kind of got into, well, how do you go about doing it? I mean, are you singling out China, basically?
Yeah.
Because that's the bad guy. And how does that go about? And like I said, we talked about it, and I don't I really can't remember that we brought it back up since then. There could be one now, or there could be one in the Senate, and that's something I'm gonna have to check on. But people are aware of it, and I don't think we've really had any problems, so to speak, with it here. I mean, obviously, it could always become a problem, I'm sure, but I think everything's kind of maintained right now. So, but it is something we are aware of. Yes.
Yeah, I hear that a lot from the grassroots. I'm part of the Conservative Coalition of Mississippi as their state vice president. So I do get around the state a little bit and talk to grassroots voters and activists. And that question comes up quite frequently. So maybe we can work together on trying to address that. What are you hearing, if anything, from friends that colleagues really, about these that have voted against the school choice bill as to some of their concerns and how they could be alleviated? Are you hearing any? Are you guys having any discussions amongst yourselves?
I mean, in my opinion, kind of right now there's a line in the sand. That's really, that's not a good answer. That's kind of where things are right now. It was just, it kind of, like I said, it really sucked the air out of the room, and everybody kind of sided up. Is there anything? It really is going to depend on what the Senate comes up with on their end. And do we still have the votes over here because it was really, really close, or do we not? So I wouldn't say there's one particular issue. I think it's a mindset, and kind of like you were saying earlier. I mean, the best thing that would need to happen is that people are going to have to go in their communities and work their communities on this, educate their communities, and that's where that's what's going to make that legislator's mind up more than anything.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I got a couple minutes left. We mentioned the closed primary bill is one of them. Have you got any visibility into that? What your colleagues are talking about from that perspective? I think it's originating over in the Senate, though.
Correct. I think that's Senator Hartness, I believe.
Yeah, Don Hartness.
I heard him talking about it. I don't necessarily have any heartburn about it. I don't think there's one on the House side. It just hadn't made it. It just hadn't made it over here yet, as far as anything. But no, I'm really interested in it. I'd kind of like to see what happens. And kind of see where it goes from here. But yeah, that'd be a good one to talk about. Good discussion on it. So I'm looking forward to hopefully it'll come over here on our side.
Yeah, I hear from activists and grassroots type folks all the time wanting to produce more conservative Republican nominees, and closed primaries are the shot in the arm that they think needs to happen. And when you look at the numbers, it is very consistent that closed primaries tend to produce the most conservative nominees, and the most conservative nominees can win in Mississippi. And the folks out here at the grassroots level, we know it.
That's right. I think everybody's keeping up saw that, and this most recent one with Senator Hartness, and I don't have any problems with it. Obviously, that was big. When Thad Cochran and all that stuff's going on, I think in 2014, if I remember right. And I'm kind of anxious to see what happens there. And it's certainly creating a conversation about it. And we got a little time before the next big one. So, but yeah, it's something I'm interested in for sure.
Absolutely. Well, Fred, how can we help you? Got about a minute left to go. Tell folks how we can help you guys in the legislature right now as you're going through the session.
I think the best thing to do, and if you're a conscientious legislator, you're going to listen to your people. And now I listen to anybody. I'm kind of out there on social media more than a lot of my colleagues, and I'll help anybody. But when somebody if you like a bill or don't like a bill, let me know. You can find me on, just pull my name up, Fred Shanks, on Facebook. That's kind of where I do most of my stuff on. And if you get my phone number, that's fine too. And shoot me a text or private message and tell me, I'm for this bill or not. And here's why. I like to, I like to help people, and and the more that people are clued in on what we're doing, the better. And which HB2, a lot of parents were opinionated on both sides, and they were really, really keeping up. They knew the terminology we used, and this was the first time I'd ever really seen parents and have kept up like they did, and knew, like I said, like the terminology we use here in the chamber, which is where we're in right now. They were knowing that, and I thought that was pretty cool. So
that is pretty cool.
I mean, just
well, we'll get you
yeah,
back. We'll get you back, especially when the budget stuff starts. I want to get you back when that starts. Thank you so much for spending this time with us today. And go follow him on Facebook, guys. He keeps you well informed. Thanks a lot, Representative Franks. We appreciate you. I'll see you soon, I'm sure. Tomorrow, Whistleblower Wednesday, Mike Howell, the leader of the Oversight Project, is with us. And, man, do we have a lot to talk about from a weaponization of government perspective. I'll see you then.